We're thrilled to have each of you here with us today as we celebrate this special day in our community, Memorial Day. I know many of you have been here since the first honoring of Memorial Day, this being our 14th. I'd like to recognize, before we get started, some of the folks that have joined us today. Many of those will be recognized later on the agenda, many of our military leaders, but we have from the City of Auburn City Council members Jean Dulaney, Sheila Ekman, if y'all raise your hand wherever you are, Robin Kelly, Bob Norman, Dick Phelan, and Tom Worden. City Manager Charlie Duggan is with us. Charlie, we appreciate your dedication to this Memorial Day breakfast, along with all the other city staff that work so diligently, particularly in the Economic Development Department. We also have with us from the City Manager's Department, Kevin Cowper and Jim Weston, and many department heads today. Senator Tom Watley is with us, along with his mom, Sheriff Jay Jones, County Commissioner Johnny Lawrence, Olene Price, Judge Bill English. Ms. Showalter, we certainly want to recognize you and all your guests here today, and we'll have the opportunity to say a number of things about your late husband and certainly honor your family. I want to thank Jim Warman. Jim has been here through the years as our piano player and does a wonderful job. We have a large group of veterans from the VA hospital, and they join us each year. You guys raise your hand in the back. We appreciate you being here.
DJ, may I say two words to you? Absolutely outstanding. You got it all from your mama. All from your mama. Let us pray. God, we gather together this morning to celebrate. We celebrate a country of promised freedom and continuing commitment to ensure that all people might call themselves free. We thank you. We celebrate the men and women who have served in the military at our behest. Thank you. We celebrate the courage and commitment of thousands of service people who have given their all in service to our country. We also, Heavenly Father, gather this morning to honor. We honor those who have left behind family, friends, and community to serve in the military. We honor those who have loved our country enough to risk everything for its prosperity. We honor the men and the women throughout the years who have dedicated their lives to our freedom and our rights. But most of all, we gather this morning to remember, even as you instruct us in the scripture, to remember all the good that have happened for us in our lives. And so we remember those we've lost who paid what we call the ultimate sacrifice. We remember the sacrifices of so many in services across the board to their country. And then, God, we remember you. You who redeems the unredeemable. You who forgives the unforgivable and encourages that we love both our neighbor and our enemy. And so this morning, let us, God, celebrate, let us honor, and let us remember. And we thank you for he who died, that all of us who stand under the auspices of Western Protestant Christianity might have an opportunity to shine forth as witnesses as we remember these things. And then, as Abraham Lincoln reminds us, with malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as you, God, give us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, and to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. And then finally, we pray your blessing upon the food that we have received, that its nourishment would bless us and sustain us as we continue to be witnesses in this world. It is through Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Green. Johnny has been involved with us at the City of Auburn, served on the Planning Commission, works closely in his community as well as at Auburn University, and also, obviously, you could tell Johnny has another passion, and that is he is a pastor. So thank you, Johnny, for sharing with us. Again, good morning. Thank you, Johnny. You think we should pass the plate? Again, good morning and welcome to the 14th Annual Mayor's Memorial Day Breakfast. This has become one of the great annual events in the life of our community. It's a time for us to come together to collectively say thank you to the hundreds of thousands of American men and women who have given their lives to preserve our very freedom. This is a time to remind ourselves that we enjoy our unprecedented freedom in this country because of that ultimate sacrifice. On this occasion, we especially remember the brave men and women from Auburn who died fighting for our freedom. While our emphasis on Memorial Day is giving thanks to those who died in military service to our country, we also recognize the brave men and women who served in the military in the past and those who serve today in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard. And I want to thank our men and women who served at Auburn University and the Color Guard that was here earlier, who will also retire the colors. We believe that this annual breakfast is an important way Auburn demonstrates its appreciation to the veterans who are here today and to the millions of men and women who have served and continue to serve our great nation. It's one way we can stand on the curb and clap as they go by, as Will Rogers so aptly put it. I'm grateful today that we recognize and appreciate the members of the military who have sacrificed so much for each of us. In the past, that was not always the case. Those who served in Vietnam were not welcomed with a parade with people standing on the curb as they went by, but were rather vilified by many. Let us never return to the days when we blame the warrior for doing his duty. As General Moore has so appropriately said on more than one occasion, hate the war, but love the warrior. Auburn is an unusually patriotic community. When one looks back over the history of Auburn and Auburn University, he or she sees thousands of Auburn men and women who have volunteered to serve our great country in a time of need. We've produced leaders at every level in the military over the past 150 years, from generals to privates. Some just did their duty while others dedicated their careers to the entire military life. One could just think back over the past 13 years of the distinguished veterans that we've honored. They represent the thousands of Auburn men and women that have served our country, not looking for glory, but out of a deep sense of service and gratitude for the freedoms, again, that we each enjoy. My good friend Toby Warren recently studied the history of Auburn's commitment to the military over the past century and a half. Toby reported that during World War II, Auburn, like it had in the Civil War and World War I, served as a training base for the military. And it produced over 32,000 troops for the war effort. Following the end of World War II, Auburn then, of course, API, experienced massive growth as a result of the GI Bill. Enrollment more than doubled in the 5-year period after the war. over 100 officers that attended Auburn have attained flag rank. That is, of course, either an admiral or general. One of our Distinguished Veteran Award winners, Carl Mundy, was Commandant of the Marine Corps, and two Auburn graduates, Hugh Shelton and Richard Myers, served as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the past decade. Both were awarded master's degrees from Auburn. Our great university has also produced 6 astronauts and other leaders of NASA, including the director of the Kennedy Space Center. The songwriter and poet Bob Dylan said, "I think of a hero as someone who understands the degree of responsibility that comes with his freedom." Over the years, Auburn, both the university and the community, has produced people who understand their responsibility to serve is what guarantees our freedom. As a result, we have a very long list of heroes associated with Auburn throughout our history. We're proud of this heritage and of the men and women who have contributed so importantly to it. I believe this annual breakfast and this solemn celebration of our heroes mean as much to you as it does to me. Over the years, I've seen most of you and many of you return to this event both energized and proud to be an American. And on that note, I'd like to ask you to a show of hands of those that this is their first Mayor's Memorial Day breakfast. Well, thank you very much for being here, and I hope it won't be your last. I hope it will be one that you will continue to support. Now let me ask those that have been to 5 or more breakfasts. Excellent. 10 or more. All 14. Thank you very much. That proves my point. Americans have special pride in their military and military service despite the hardships they faced while serving. You know that you participated in something much greater than any of us can be as individuals. You know that you have paid back in some way what our great country has given to us. So it is time to stand and when it's time to be and be recognized for your service this year, know that all the rest of us are eternally grateful to you and for your fallen comrades. You'll hear from many of our special guests in a few minutes, so I'll let them be introduced when it's their time to speak. At this morning's celebration of Memorial Day, we're spotlighting our Auburn heroes from the Korean War. As you will hear later, in recent years, Auburn has successfully recruited a number of automotive suppliers from South Korea. As you know, friendship between America and South Korea is based on our efforts to preserve the freedom of the Koreans in the Korean War since the time of the Korean War. We're truly the closest of allies in the geopolitical sense and in the economic sense. In a few minutes, Dick Phelan is going to give you a status report on the Auburn Veterans Scholarship Fund. Before Dick does that, I wanted to give special recognition to Mr. Kim, who is with us today, who is Vice Chairman of SCA Korea. At the recent opening of SCA Alabama, the company announced a $20,000 donation to the Veterans Scholarship Fund in recognition of the contributions American veterans have made to the freedom of the South Korean people. Mr. Kim, if you don't mind standing, sir. We certainly appreciate all of your contributions, and we thank you and your company. All of those from SCA and related companies, please raise your hands. Thank you very much. Daniel Yu is with us today, too. He is president of SCA Alabama and a resident of Auburn. and is a former officer in the Korean Army and is a member of the Korean version of the ROTC, the Association of Republic of Korea ROTC, Southern U.S. District. We're proud to have Daniel and other members of this important group with us today, as well as your contribution to our community. At the SCA opening, our Korean friends showed a video that we thought you would want to see, so we've asked their permission to let you see the video that they showed to the veterans group. I know you'll enjoy it.
"60 years ago, you came to an unknown land to preserve freedom and peace. We still remember your gallantry and sacrifice. The unexpected war put everything into chaos, and we had to put our lives on the line to protect the future of our nation. Then, you gave a warm helping hand to us in times of hardship and despair. It's still vivid in my memory that you came to help us in the name of friendship. When our country's peace was at stake, you came running into danger that might separate you from your loved ones for good. In a country you never heard of, despite challenging weather and fear of war, you devoted yourself to defend our freedom and the Republic of Korea. Do you remember the time we spent together? Even though we didn't speak the same language, we were all of one mind. We fought days and nights in severe cold, enduring injuries. We shed tears for the death of our innocent fellow soldiers. Your valor and sacrifice served as a foundation for us to regain hope. In the poorest country that was expected to take more than 100 years to rise from the ashes of war, we exerted every effort to recover from the war. With the sweat we shed, we began to make a history of a miracle amid the ruins of war. 60 years after the war, today, Korea emerged as the 10th largest economic power in the world and became the chair of the G20, as well as a proud member of the United Nations. Now, Korea is leaping towards a better future. Korea became the first country that transformed itself from an aid recipient to a donor and is reaching out to those in need across the globe. We will always remember your noble sacrifice. and warm heart that offered help in the name of friendship. My dearest friend, you will always be our hero.
Thank you to our Korean friends gathered today, and thank you for your contributions, not only to the Veteran Scholarship Fund, certainly, but to the economy and America, and certainly to Auburn, Alabama. Thank you very much. All right, at this time, I would like to ask Sam Nichols, Chairman of our Veterans Committee, to come up with an introduction.
Out of sequence on the program, but that's okay, Bill. Okay. I'd like to introduce, first of all, our past distinguished veterans that are in company with us today. Major, the Honorable Pete Turnham. Pete. Corporal and Iwo Jima veteran Jack Sims. And Captain Doug Watson, a Vietnam veteran. Also in our presence today we have Major General Perry Smith. General Smith is the Adjutant General of the state of Alabama and the Commander of the Alabama Naval Guard. Rear Admiral Bill Goodwin, U.S. Navy. Bill? Bill is an FA-18 Hornet pilot extraordinaire. Has done hundreds of traps on aircraft carriers at sea. Even more impressively, he was the commissioning commanding officer of the supercarrier USS Ronald Reagan, CVN. Is Brigadier General Wendell McLean with us this morning? Not here. Colonel Joseph Fetch is the professor of aerospace studies at Auburn University, the commanding officer. Major Jeffrey Dial is he's the Marine Option Instructor at the Naval Association. Last year, Jeffrey Dial was selected as the finest ROTC, Naval ROTC instructor in the entire country. He's retiring at the end of this year, and he and his family have opted to settle right here in Auburn. We're lucky to have him. Hoorah! Auburn Student Veterans Association was established last year. It's comprised of guys who are taking advantage of the new GI Bill. They're all Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. We have the outgoing president, Corporal Philip Williams. Please stand. And the incoming president is Cadet Dan McLean. And might as well take this opportunity also to thank the folks we work with every day at the City of Auburn, the group that we're most associated with is the Economic Development Department under Philip Dunlap. Philip, please stand. We've got an outstanding staff that work for him and that we work with every day. Ben McGee keeps the flags flying at the Auburn Veterans Monument. They hoist flags for occasions like the Marine Corps birthday. They'll put up the Marine Corps flag or the POW-MIA flag on days to recognize that. Ben does a great job over there. The person that we really work with, who makes all these, the Veterans Day, Memorial Day celebrations possible, who works every day and works the hardest, is Andrea Mitchell. She keeps this operation afloat. And I'll now turn it back over to the mayor.
See, I went to Auburn High School with Sam, and I knew how smart he was. I wanted to know how quick he was. That's why I skipped right over Dick Phelan. But at this time, I would like to ask Dick Phelan, former chairman of the Veterans Committee, for a special introduction. Dick.
I'm Dick Phelan, by the way. Before we introduce our scholarship winners, let me say again thank you to SCA for contributing the $20,000 to Auburn Scholarship Fund. We have given two $2,000 scholarships per year since 2008. One to a Southern Union veteran and the other to an Auburn University veteran. We initially set our goal for this program is $100,000. Now, we haven't reached it yet, but with their contribution and with all our contributions, we are anticipating that we can reach $100,000 fairly soon. I'd like to introduce you to the award winners, both from Southern Union as well as from Auburn University. The award winner from Southern Union is Jason McGinnis, who is sitting right over here. Congratulations. Jason lives in Auburn. He had 2 tours in Iraq. He was a combat engineer. He had 1 tour, a 12-month tour in 2004 and 2005, and then a 15-month tour in 2006 and 2007. He's originally from Kinston, Alabama. He has a 4.0 GPA in General Studies at Southern Union. Hopes to eventually go to Auburn and major in civil engineering. Thank you very much, Jason. The award winner from Auburn University is Jesse Wood. Jesse, would you mind standing? He's currently drilling with the Army Reserves. Jesse is a graduate of Auburn High School, and he's a private first class in the Auburn Reserve. He is a second semester mechanical engineering, and in his first semester, he got a 4.0. He too wants to be a combat engineer and go from green to gold, which means as he graduates from Auburn University, he'll go to an OCS program and be an officer. He's also sitting with his girlfriend, Elizabeth Anderson, right? Welcome. During a recent Auburn Veterans Committee earlier this year, we discussed how many really outstanding veterans had come from Auburn. Were now deceased, but they had never been recognized not only by the Auburn Veterans Committee, but also by the city. From that discussion, we adopted the Auburn Heroes Remembered Award. This is presented to someone who has been a real hero while living, but has unfortunately passed on. The initial award goes to a true hero for not only this city, but also the nation. And that's Colonel Edward R. Showalter, United States Army. Before we show you a video presentation on Colonel Showalter, let me introduce you to his wife Bonnie and 3 of their 5 children. Bonnie, would you mind standing just for a little bit? There's your son, Ned Showalter III. He's a colonel in the United States Army, just like his dad was. His wife Sharon is standing there. His daughter Katie is standing there. My daughter Ruth just got here this morning, but she came from Georgia. Thank you very much for coming. She has a husband, Tony, Dr. Tony, I believe. And another son, Bill Showalter, is here. Been a good friend of the Showalter family forever and ever. Thank you very much for coming. Let's look at the video. I think all these videos are, quite frankly, real good, and I particularly like this one. So if we started right now, I'd appreciate it.
Edward R. Showalter Jr. just wanted to serve his country. Born in 1927, he was barely too young to serve in World War II, but that didn't stop him from trying. Germany surrendered even as Showalter prepared to ship out as a merchant marine. Showalter's commitment to serve didn't end with World War II. He excelled at the Virginia Military Institute and accepted an Army commission as a second lieutenant upon graduation, completing his officer's basic course at Fort Benning, Georgia. And in March of 1952, Lieutenant Showalter left for Korea. Showalter served in Korea with Company A, 31st Infantry Regiment, 7th Infantry Division, where casualty rates brought him to the position of executive officer by August of 1952. In October, 1st Lieutenant Showalter led one prong of the attack on Triangle Hill as part of Operation Showdown, an attempt to redraw battle lines that hadn't changed for almost a year. As the battle began, the Chinese struck with an astonishing concentration of fire. Showalter's determination embodied his commitment to serving his country. I realized this is what I'd trained for over a year, what I'd wanted to do for over 5 years. The men depended on me. I couldn't let them down. Showalter led his platoon against the odds and against the fire. Almost immediately, bullets grazed his hands and ankle, but he kept on going. His men followed his example, with even the wounded fighting on. Showalter took a sniper's bullet to the head, his helmet saving his life, but not his consciousness. When he came to, a bullet lodged above his left ear. He left behind the medics and rejoined the fight. When a grenade added shrapnel to his right side, he again left the medics behind to rejoin his men. It took a Chinese machine gun to stop him, the bullet shattering his forearm and knocking him unconscious. Mistaken for dead, Showalter awoke in a pile of fallen Chinese soldiers. Once he was able to struggle free, he checked on his men who had secured their objective, at least in the short term. Only then did Showalter surrender to the medics, and after months of hospitalization and a Medal of Honor around his neck, Edward Showalter Jr. still wanted to serve his country. Showalter later completed airborne training and commanded a battalion in the 82nd Airborne Division. He served 2 tours of duty in Vietnam and was wounded 3 more times. Colonel Showalter retired in 1977, recipient of a Silver Star and 2 Purple Hearts. Showalter was a father of 5, settling in Auburn after his retirement. He died on November 21, 2003, and rests at the Fort Benning Post Cemetery. With the example of his life and courage, even today, Edward R. Showalter Jr. serves his country and inspires those who fight for her freedom.
As it says in the video, Colonel Showalter won a lot of medals in his career, including the Medal of Honor. Only 3,459 people since 1861, when this medal was initially started, have won the Medal of Honor. He was also awarded the Silver Star in Vietnam, having won the Medal of Honor in Korea. He was also received the Korean Chung Mu Medal, which is about the 3rd highest medal that the Koreans give. Just as we have done with the Distinguished Veteran each year, we put their names on this plaque here. We have started the same type of plaque that's going to be in the City Hall lobby of, or in the lobby of City Hall rather, And the first one there is Colonel Edward R. Showalter III. And that will be in the City Hall lobby, just like the other one, the Distinguished Veteran. Now we also have a small plaque that will go to the Showalter family. So if Sam, you want to come up here, as well as Bonnie, would you come up here and we'll give you this small plaque that you can use. We will introduce again Sam Nichols, who is the chairman of our Auburn Veterans Committee. Sam.
A couple of years ago, we started a new thing at the Mayor's Memorial Day breakfast, and it was just pretty much by luck that it happened. As you recall, they did the honor flight where they took veterans of World War II and flew up to Washington, D.C. for the day. There was a TV station over in Columbus, Georgia, Channel 38, Cable Channel 38, WLTZ. They had a bunch of videographers on board. They were already making the trip and documenting the trip. In that same year, our distinguished veteran, Jack Sims, Iwo Jima veteran, was on the flight. And so they went ahead and produced a fantastic video for us that we showed at the Memorial Day breakfast a couple of years ago. And by the way, you can view that video anytime you like on the City of Auburn website, auburnalabama.org. Just click on the Veterans Committee, and they have a list of all our past distinguished veterans with their biographies and also the videos that were produced for that. Well, anyway, the City of Auburn picked up the ball after this great initial video, and last year we produced another great video where our recipient last year was an astronaut, Hank Hartsfield, and you can also view his video online anytime you like. And the guy who's really responsible for making these videos, we're lucky to have him, Chris Vessel. Chris, will you... Oh, he's behind the camera. All right, then. But I guess Chris got his training in videography over in Columbus at WTVM Channel 9 over there, and he's now an employee of the City of Auburn, and we're very, very lucky to have him. We've raised the bar on producing videos, and Chris followed right along with it. That makes my job easier introducing the speaker, because we have a great video to show for Colonel Andy Lamar. In keeping with the Korean War theme, we chose a veteran who endured the incredible hardships over in Korea during the Korean War, including the minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures, and I hope Andy will tell us about some of that. But Andy Lamar is a man of integrity and character, a true Southern gentleman who represents the finest that Auburn, Alabama has to offer. Please show the video.
Spend a few minutes with Colonel Andy Lamar Jr. and you'll get a glimpse of a true leader.
You know, anybody that has sat down with Andy Lamar for 5 minutes quickly realizes that this guy was very comfortable in the saddle when he was a military commander.
He was very independent. He ended up, his parents moved to Birmingham, and he moved back to Oregon to run track there for his senior year so that he could finish out his senior year in Oregon. He moved back there by himself to do that.
After graduating high school in Oregon, Colonel Lamar moved to Auburn to attend the Alabama Polytechnic Institute, only to follow in his father's footsteps by enlisting in the Army 2 years later.
I went in as an enlisted man initially, and then got an appointment to the military academy, and then went there and got my commission.
Upon graduating from the renowned West Point Military Academy in 1946, Colonel Lamar was sent to Fort Benning for additional training before being shipped off to post-war Germany. It was the first of what would be many overseas assignments.
Initially was in the constabulary, which controlled the areas, and then when the Berlin airlift came along, we were converted to an armored cavalry regiment, and I ended up commanding a tank company in that regiment.
Lamar served in Germany, Belgium, and Korea over the course of his extensive overseas military career.
I guess we crossed the Atlantic 4 times. My parents lived in Europe 3 different times, but there was a lot of opportunity in moving. We crossed the Atlantic via shipboard 3 times, and it was really a nice experience because it was a mini vacation while you were moving. 2 of them named the SS America and the SS United States, and it was really a fun time for us as a family.
Lamar and his family would move back to Auburn in 1968. Andy came full circle as a professor of military science at Auburn University and would continue his legacy by impacting several generations of students and professors.
He and I met on a parade field one day, and he was out there watching the Corps cadets as I had them assembled, and I was doing the best I could with them. And he told me, as we shook hands, he says, "They look great out there." And I said, "You're Colonel Lamar?" And he says, "I am." He says, "Pleased to meet you, and I'm happy to be here." I said, as the conversation went on, I started asking him about his time as the professor of military science. I'd seen his picture on the wall and knew that he had been at Auburn as the professor in the Vietnam era. And so I asked him quickly, I said, "What was it like back then?" He said, "Well," he said, "you can't even imagine."
Well, at that time, we had, it was mandatory for all male students. And like in the Army, we had something like 1,800 cadets in the Army. Now they probably have maybe 100, a little over. But it was interesting, and I think in the June graduation, I'd commissioned maybe 100 second lieutenants. So I think that, to me, was a contribution to the Army.
He says, "You're kind of doing the same thing I was." He says, we're getting, he says, or I was then and you are now, getting young soldiers ready for combat. And he says, "You've got to realize that when they leave Auburn University, a lot of these young men and young women out there on the field you have today are going to step right into combat." He said, and that's not much different than what we had in the late 60s and early 70s.
Fred Lacey served as lieutenant colonel under Colonel Lamar for 2 years during his time as professor of military science.
During that period of time, I came to admire him greatly. It was my privilege to work for him. In everything that he did, he set an absolutely marvelous example, not only for the officers and enlisted people who work for him here, but for the cadets. Never served with Colonel Lamar in combat, but I wish I'd had the privilege to do so. I'm certain that my admiration for him would be even greater than it is, but certainly I saw him in action, if you will, in almost every way except combat. And out of all of that, I say to you again, he's a great and a good man, and I'm extremely fond of him.
But you can see it and you can feel it when you're in his presence that he had to be an awesome commander. And you know, the people that knew him back when he was in the service, that's all they say about him.
In addition to his military career, Andy Lamar has been a successful business executive and family man. Lamar managed the Colonial Mall in Auburn and served as president of the Auburn Chamber of Commerce. Through the years, he's been a devoted husband and father. Today, his children credit their father for a rich upbringing.
My dad was strict, but he was very kind and very supportive of all of his children, and including my mother. And so we had a happy family. We were military, and we moved around, and we had to, as I said, keep our opinions and our behavior close, and our hair cut close too. So, but it was very good. It was rich.
Colonel Lamar is a man of integrity and character. It's this dedication to serving his country, Auburn University, and the Auburn community that makes Colonel Andy Lamar, Jr. the City of Auburn's 2012 Distinguished Veteran.
I won't get to see Colonel Lamar honored, but I'm going to say right now, congratulations to you, Colonel Lamar. The city could not have picked a better person to honor, and I'm truly proud to have served with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Andy Lamar, Jr., United States Army.
Thank you very much, and good morning. After seeing that video, I wouldn't believe everything that I saw. I must say that I'm most humbled to be selected the Distinguished Veteran for this year, and I'm more humbled when I look at the past recipients of this honor. I would like to take you back 60 years now. Dean Road in Auburn was a dirt road. There were no cell phones. I knew one person who had a television, and a gallon of gas cost about 16 cents. In the summer of '52, I went over to the Korean War. I was assigned to the 73rd Tank Battalion in the 7th Infantry Division. We had M46 tanks with 90mm guns. At this time, the UN forces were deployed along a defensive line running through the central part of Korea. Just to the north of this line, the Chinese and North Koreans were deployed along their defensive line. Now, at this time, the pace of the war was now slowed with localized battles replacing earlier large-scale offensive operations. Now, since we have a number of our Korean friends with us today, I'm going to give a very abbreviated account of the Battle of White Horse Mountain. The division on the right flank of my division, the 7th Division, was the 9th Korean Division. In this division sector was White Horse Mountain, which was a dominant terrain feature and a stepping stone to the Chorwan Valley. Now, the Chorwan Valley was considered by the Chinese an avenue of approach to Seoul, the capital of South Korea. In the fall of 1952, the Chinese decided that they would attack and seize White Horse Mountain. They would use the 38th Chinese Army for this operation. A Chinese army was about the same size as a U.S. Corps. The 38th Army had 3 divisions, artillery, and supporting units with a total of about 30,000 men. The 9th Korean Division had 3 regiments, 3 battalions of artillery with 105 howitzers, a tank battalion with light tanks with 75 millimeter guns. The 9th Division occupied White Horse Mountain with 2 regiments plus an attached regiment. On October the 6th, the Chinese of 52, the Chinese launched their attack against White Horse. They attacked with 2 divisions and 1 division in reserve. A couple of days after this attack, I was given the task of taking a tank company and supporting units to support the 9th Korean Division. At the time that we arrived in the division sector, a tank company from the 140th Tank Battalion also arrived. This company took positions on the north side of White Horse Mountain. Our tank company took positions on the south side of the mountain. The mission of these tank companies was to prevent the Chinese from moving around the flanks of the 9th Korean forces on White Horse. Now, the Battle of White Horse Mountain would last 10 days. The 9th Division had 8 battalions of artillery supporting their defense. The crest of the mountain would change hands 10 times. The 9th Division did receive close air support from the U.S. Air Force. On a number of occasions, the artillery and the tanks prevented the Chinese from moving around the flanks of the 9th Korean Division on the mountain. An example was our tank crews on the south at dawn one morning observing an infantry Chinese battalion moving around the south flank of the Korean infantry. The tanks opened fire with their 90 millimeter guns. They fired all of their high explosive rounds and all of their white phosphorus rounds and completely destroyed the battalion. There wasn't a blade of vegetation in the area, so the Chinese had no place to hide. The battalion will have been 200 plus men. The Chinese did commit their reserve division during the course of the battle. On the 10th day of the battle, the 9th Division controlled the crest of the mountain. The division mounted a counterattack against the Chinese forces on the forward slope of the mountain and drove the Chinese off of the mountain and back into their defense line. This ended the Battle of White Horse Mountain. A historical account of this battle indicates that the 9th Korean Division had 3,300 casualties with 500 killed in action. The Chinese had 9,500 casualties with over 8,000 killed. Now the tanks did contribute to the defense of White Horse, but basically this was an infantry artillery battle. The 9th Korean Division performed extremely well throughout the battle, and they were supported by the overwhelming fires of 8 battalions of artillery. The 9th Division performed so well that the name of the division was changed from the 9th to the White Horse Division. And it's my understanding that today in the South Korean Army that the White Horse Division exists. Now, the White Horse Mountain Battle is one example of the many localized battles that took place during the Korean War in 1952 and 53. The last of these battles was the Second Battle of Pork Chop Hill in July of 1953, just a few days before the truce. The truce became effective on the 27th of July 53, and the Korean War ended. Now, in closing, I would like to say that I'm most gratified to see all of you here this morning to remember our fallen comrades. Again, I'm most honored to have been designated the Distinguished Veteran for this year. Thank you.
It is indeed my pleasure to present Colonel Lamar with the Distinguished Veterans Award at this time. Colonel, you certainly exemplify all that's good about Auburn, and we appreciate your commitment to this community and beyond. Auburn Distinguished Veterans Award in grateful appreciation, Colonel Andrew W. Lamar, Jr., U.S. Army, retired, Auburn, Alabama, May 28, 2012. Thank you. All right, at this time we're going to have some musical selections. I want to talk a little bit about Dr. William Powell and his commitment to our breakfast and certainly the program at the Veterans Memorial as well. So Dr. Powell has assembled his summer choral group, and will now perform for us the medley and the service medley. I talked a little bit earlier about each of you standing as your song is sung by the choral group so that we can recognize you, and we look forward to that. Jim Warman, we thank you. I've already mentioned you, but I appreciate your years of excellent work in helping us put this together, and this doesn't just happen on Monday mornings. There's a lot of work that goes into it beforehand. So Dr. Powell and Mr. Warman.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We just want to give you a quick introduction. We're a small sampling of the Auburn University Chamber Choir. And we'd first like to say that it's a great honor to be here with you this morning, and we'd like to thank you for this continued opportunity. This morning we'll be performing an armed service medley. This medley kind of showcases each anthem of each military branch. We'd like to ask all veterans in attendance that when you hear your branch acknowledged, if you'll please rise so that we can honor you for your service to the country. The first anthem you will hear is representing the United States Army.
Army would now like to invite all members and veterans of the United States Air Force to stand and join us as we sing the Air Force Anthem. Up we go into the far blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, soon to be our thunder. Down we rise, sounding our flame from under. Up with one terrible roar. We live and pray for the bound and brave, for nothing can stop the U.S. Air Force. We ask those members of the United States Marines to stand and join in singing the Marine Corps anthem. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we will fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First we fight for rights and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marines. The United States
Thank you very much. And at this time, as we close, would you please stand and join as we sing together, God Bless America.
Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home.
Thank you, choir. Thank you, Dr. Powell, and again, Mr. Warman. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We will now, in just one moment, retire the colors, but I want to again remind you, and certainly you wouldn't be here otherwise, but our freedom is not free. So those that have paid the ultimate sacrifice and their families, we're forever grateful. Thank you for being here. Thank you to those that you've been here. This is your first year. We certainly expect to see you back next year as we increase those numbers and this event continues to grow in order for us to pay tribute to those that have made the ultimate sacrifice. We look forward to seeing you at the Veterans Memorial and the wreath laying. Would you please retire the colors? thank you for being here this morning, and please decide among yourselves, someone take the flower arrangement with you so they won't go to waste.